Amen. All right. So we're all sinners, right? What happens when two sinners get married and have kids? They produce offspring that are also sinners. So why have kids at all? And why get married? Shouldn't we all just stay single and wait for Jesus to return? Hi, everyone. My name is Cree. Welcome to Food for the Heart, Abide Network's Friday night Bible study. And thanks to Jennifer for starting this a couple of years ago. And thanks everyone else on Zoom and Facebook for joining our live stream. And thank you so much, Paul, for that beautiful prayer. And tonight, our dear Abide coach, Anika Christian, will be talking about parenting. So if you are a parent or planning to be a parent, or if you simply felt my rant earlier, stick around and keep watching because Anika is excited to talk to us about what the deal is with parenting. So let me just add her to the screen here. Welcome, Anika, and thank you for joining us. So guys, meet Anika. Anika, this is everyone. Anika loves to share what she's learned with others. And she's worked as a teacher, a missionary, and even wrote a book called Fight for Your Marriage. And aside from mental health coaching, she currently homeschools her 5 kids. And we are just so happy that you could share with us tonight about one sinner parenting another. So Anika, tell us what makes our topic tonight important?
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm so like Cree said, I'm very excited to be here with you all. This is important because it's a gift that God has given us. And it's a high privilege, it's a high responsibility, but it's also a high blessing to be able to train and disciple our children to love God, trust Him, and obey Him. So I really think it's something that is dear to my heart. I have 5 children, so I've been parenting for maybe 17 years now. So it's been a lot of challenges, but a lot of I've seen God's hand and His grace has abounded.
Wow. All right. And we are very excited for what you're about to share with us tonight. So yes, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. Well, again, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Cree, and thank you for the prayer for me as I share this evening, Brother Paul. So as Cree said, this evening, our message is entitled One Sinner Parenting Another, and it's taken from chapter 10 of 13 Weeks to Love. And this, like I said, this title or this chapter was really special to me because I am a parent and I've been a parent about 17 years, and my oldest son just turned 16. So I've had lots of ups and downs, and it's been a blessing. And I'm thankful to God for this opportunity to share some of the things that I've learned along the way, and things that have worked, I guess, and things that have not gone so well. But I would like to start by just taking a look at Psalms 127, verses 3-5. And it says, "Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is His reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are the children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate." So our goal as Christian parents is to develop our children's character so that they can reflect the image of Christ. And I believe Luke chapter 2, verse 52 paints a beautiful picture of what this growth and grace looks like for our children. And it says, this is Luke chapter 2, verse 52, "And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man." As a parent, this has been one of my go-to verses as I make decisions for my children, with my husband, and with my children. So as I think about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, where we're going to be, I think about these things. Is this going to help my children to grow physically, to grow mentally, to grow in their relationship with God, and to grow in their relationship with others socially? So I think that can be a guide. I highly recommend, because the Bible says without a vision, the people perish, where there's no vision. So I recommend parents have a vision of what they want their children to be through the help of Christ. And so that's one of the verses that I feel like has been helpful to me, is because parenting is so many things to so many people, but just boiling it down to 4 principles has helped me. How is this decision going to help my child? Is this going to be a benefit, or is it going to hurt them in the long run? So as we continue, we see that, so that's Luke 2:52, but we see that the ultimate parent and the ultimate example is God. And we see in Exodus that he tells us about his character. And we also see that his character is a blend of justice and mercy. And so justice can be looked upon as the law, as justice, as transcendence, righteousness, holiness, and truth. But on the other side, we have that mercy and grace, eminence, forgiveness, compassion, and grace. Okay, so, and this is a balance, and that's what parents, what we should strive to do. We don't want to be too heavy on justice and light on mercy, and we don't want to be too heavy with mercy and light on justice. We want to have a well-balanced approach, not to the left, not to the right, but in the middle. And not, we just want to have a balanced approach, because it's just imagine that straight and narrow path. That's what we want to choose. So as we look at this, we see that the 2 core principles is control and support. So control is the ability to establish rules, set expectations, and apply appropriate consequences. And this is something that I didn't do too well when I was a teacher. As Cree mentioned, I taught for 6 years, and I just wanted to teach. I didn't want to set any rules and just follow up with the rules. I didn't do well at that. And you know what? You can't really teach if you don't have the attention of your students, if they don't know that, if they're in a safe environment and they can focus on learning, so things did not go well during that time. But it's important that as we set rules and set expectations, that we are prepared to apply consequences and give rewards as necessary. So I was young, in my early 20s, and I really didn't understand these principles. But over the years, I've seen a lot more success as I implement these principles and just, take control, or not necessarily control, but just step into the place of authority that God has given me. And, for those of you who may be shy to say, oh, I don't want to tell my children what to do. Our children are called to obey us, so we get our authority from the word of God. He tells our children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Okay. So again, support. So control is establishing rules and setting expectations and appropriately applying consequences, and, giving rewards as necessary. And support is the opportunity or just the ability to affirm, encourage, relate warmly to, and connect. And both of these things come more natural to others, and to some, to some, it's easy for them to take control, but they may lack in the support. For others, it's easy to be supportive, but they may lack in the control. And we're going to take a look at that on this chart right here, the parenting style chart. It shows us what happens. So when you have low support and low control, you tend to be a negligent parent. But if you have low support and high control, we'll go to high support, low control, we tend to have what's called permissive parents. And then on the other spectrum, we have low support, high control, which is authoritarian parents. And then we have another opportunity of parenting is called high support, high control, authoritative parents. And so we want to have both. We want to have high support and high control, because researchers have found that high levels of both have been found to increase the likelihood of positive parenting outcomes. So I'm sure many of us want to have a positive parenting outcome at the end of the day. So fathers and mothers, these are character traits that we need to pay closer attention to, because as we go forward, we'll be able to reap the benefits. And we're just going to talk about the results of some of these parenting styles. So negligent parents, what they tend to do is they're not there. They're not present. They're too busy sometimes. They don't know what they're doing. They really don't. They just let the children pretty much do what they want to do. They don't offer support, and they don't offer the structure and, like we talked about, establishing rules and expectations and giving consequences. So the children are kind of left to just fend for themselves, both emotionally and with the rules around the home. And Judy and Jack Balswick say that most recruits to authoritarian cults, they come from neglected homes, from neglectful homes rather, with negligent parents. So the next type of parent is a permissive parent. This kind of parent lacks discipline, and the permissive parent, they kind of have fear and they just give the control over to the child. They don't want any confrontations. They don't want any challenges. So what they do, they just tend to let their children just kind of run the show, so to speak. But a child who is allowed to be disrespectful to his parents, according to Billy Graham, will not have true respect for anyone. So with permissive parents, they have a difficulty developing self-discipline, and also that lack of self-discipline leads to lack of self-respect. So these are things we need to be mindful of as parents, to just make sure we're creating that environment so our children can succeed. The next type of parent is the authoritarian parent. And this parent, they lack affection. And what it tends to do is they are high on the control, but very low on giving the love. And I've seen that in my own home sometimes. We were in a situation, as they said, we spent some time, as the bio said, we spent some time overseas as missionaries. And in one time we were kind of in between mission outposts, I guess. And we stayed with a family, and this family was very strong on control, but very little affection, and what we found, my husband and I were staying with this family, and my son, we only had my son with us at this time, and he was maybe 3 years old, but he did not have that opportunity to grow up and experience nurturing stuff, because I was kind of, by beholding, I was becoming changed, and I was reflecting the parenting skills of the people around me, and they were very harsh, not very affectionate. And I started seeing myself do that with my son. And as you can guess, the result wasn't good. I started seeing things in his character, and I'm like, why is he doing that? Oh, because of this experience, So I'm happy to let you all know I'm kind of shy. I'm not doing those kind of things. And I'm finding time to, taking time to hug and kiss and cuddle and take walks and all of these kind of things, because that's not something that comes naturally. My mom was firm, and I won't say she wasn't affectionate, but she wasn't lovey-dovey like some mothers, so it's something I've had to grow into. So I hope that encourages someone that even if this is not who you are now, there's hope that God can help you to grow and to be that balanced parent that he wants you to be. So so Jason and Tripathy says it destroys their self-confidence and increases their insecurity and inferiority. It is very important in today's era that we choose an appropriate and effective parenting style to rear our children, that is to keep their future secure and to help them be interdependent. So we don't want to put our children in an awkward position where they're not prepared. We don't want our lack of affection to lead them to have rebellion in their heart, because there's a little quote in my favorite book, Character Construction, and it says, every association of life calls for the exercise of self-control, forbearance, and sympathy. So our children want our sympathy. They want our attention. They want our time. And they want our energy too. And as our parents, we want to make sure our lives are structured so that we can give them those things that they need. And our final type of parent is the goal. This is what we want to achieve with God's help, ultimately, is we want to be the authoritative parents. Okay, we want to be balanced. We want to have high control and follow that up with high support. So there's a quote in Adventist Home on page 183, and it says, every child brought into the world is the property of Jesus Christ and should be educated by precept and example to love and obey God. So authoritative parents, they're setting examples, you all. How easy is it to tell your parents, don't do this, don't do that? Don't do as I do as I say, and that's not going to go very far, because oftentimes if a parent smokes, their child is going to smoke. We had a situation where a parent was smoking And they said, don't smoke, but the child smoked because the daddy was doing it and they just followed his example. But some of the other children, just they decided not to smoke. So it is possible, but as parents, our words and our actions, they need to coincide. They need to go together. We don't need to say one thing and do something else, or do something and say something different. So we want to give our children godly examples. And the other thing we want to do is set limits. And this is something that Eli, we all know the story of Eli and his sons, but Eli gave his sons a godly example. I think all of us would agree that Eli gave his sons a godly example. But what Eli failed to do is set limits. There's a quote in Conflict and Courage that says, Eli had instructed his children in the law of God and had given them a good example in his own life, but this was not his whole duty. God required him both as a father and as a priest to restrain them from following their own perverse will. This he had failed to do. So this is where the consequences and setting the limits and setting expectations and laying down the guidelines and framework for how we want our family to run. We want to set limits, and we want to use positive reinforcement and warmth with our children and encourage them. I think about plants. Consider your children as like little flowers in the garden. Flowers need sunshine to grow, but flowers also need the rain. So it takes sunshine, the kind words, encouraging words, rewards, and the rain may be some words of, we need to do better, this is a problem, let's work on this, or you need to make a better choice. So it takes both. It takes sunshine and rain to make the flowers grow. So it takes commendation and correction to help our children grow. So we want to use less punishing and threatening. And the outcome is that our kids will be more independent, self-reliant, socially accepted, and academically successful. Let's take a look at a couple of verses that show us about grace and support with the parents. Ephesians 6:4 says, and you, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. And Colossians 3:21 says, fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged. And we don't want to discourage our children. We want to encourage them. My husband and I, we found a lot of success in being honest with our children, admitting when we fail, and they've seen our failures, and we have to be quick to say, I'm sorry. We have to be humble as we continue together. And as they see, oh, mama and daddy aren't perfect and they made a mistake, but we're not trying to cover it up, so we don't want our children to be discouraged. We can share our examples of, hey, I messed up and God helped me, and he can help you too. So especially when we do have to have those uncomfortable talks with them, let's try to keep it on a more positive, hopeful side. But at the same time, we have the law. We have the law and support. Law and control side. In Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And this takes work. We can't just sit our children in front of an electronic device and go on about our business and come back when they're 18 and say, oh, okay, what, you won't have a flower, you'll have weeds in this garden. So we want to make sure that we take the time to spend time with our children. And it tells us right here in Deuteronomy, how does this look? It says, in these words, which I command you today, shall be in your heart. You shall diligently teach them to your children and talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. So I encourage you to talk to your children. Sometimes I get busy. Sometimes I think I want to do something else, but I was challenged not too long ago to set aside 15 minutes to talk to my children. So I have 5 children. My oldest daughter, she's away at school. Well, my only daughter, she's off at college. But for my boys, we're now on a rotating schedule of each night, or I won't say every night because some nights we miss, but for the most part, they're on a rotating schedule that every night before bed, I try to spend 15 minutes and talk to them one-on-one. And during the day, we take walks. We try to take a walk at least once a day. And so that's my boys, all of their talk time. They can talk to me about what's going on in their world, what kind of amazing projects or cool projects that they just have to show me that they've been working on. in their shop or out in the yard, building stuff, planting stuff, all of the fun stuff that boys like to do. But it's a time, and that's a time for me not to only listen to them, but it's also a time for me to share it with them and, just kind of make some corrections and suggestions and, encouraging them. Isaiah 54:13. And this is what we want to be the end result. This is what we're going to reap if we're not weary in well-doing. If we continue to sow, if we continue to sow in tears, we will reap in joy. Isaiah 54:13. All your children shall be taught by the Lord, and great shall be the peace of your children. So if we teach our children, if we use these methods, if we're praying, if we're just crying out to the Lord for wisdom, he will give it to us. He will instruct us and teach us in the way we should go. He will help us to have that high control, that high support for our children. And the end result will be the peace of our children. I've seen with my boys, if when we're out of town and we come back, it gets pretty chaotic around here. Especially it's hard on my youngest son because he likes knowing this is the what's going to happen. We're going to do this and then this. And when these kind of things don't happen, it's not very peaceful, because things are just kind of all over the place. But having some structure, it gives my little one a little more peace to be able to say, oh, I can calm down. Everything's okay. But we want our children to have the peace of God. And so how can we do this? By teaching our children to choose well. We want our children to make good choices. And Isaiah 7:15 says, butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know how to refuse the evil and choose the good. We want our children just taking time to train them through, we're going to see how the best way to do this, but we want to see that they can more and more choose the good and refuse the evil. Because as parents, we tend to beg with our children, plead, bribe, nag, push, threaten, abuse, bargain, and frighten. But that's not pleasing. That's not going to give you the results that you want, because that's a lot of work. I've tried some of these, probably many of these things, and it wears me out. At the end of the day, I'm exhausted. My children are exhausted. They're tired of me. I'm tired of them. But God has something better. We need to find out his way so we can experience this peace that we saw in this other verse, okay? Deuteronomy 30:19. I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. So choose life in order that you may live, you and your descendants. Deuteronomy 30:19. And so again, God is setting before us two choices. And that's what we want to do with our children. Give them choices. We give them the opportunity to choose life so that they may live, because that's what we want them to do. We want them to continue to choose life, choosing that what is right, choosing that which is pleasing to Jesus, choosing that which is good. So we want to give them, we want to take a look at these elements of choice given. So there's going to be a desired behavior, an undesired behavior, rewards, punishments, and an appeal. So with the desired behavior, we want to clearly identify what we want our children to do. We also want to identify the undesired behavior and tell our children what we don't want them to do. We want to give them a reward for good behavior. We want to reward them for good behavior by telling them, if you obey, this will happen. And if they make the poor choice, rather, they need to know that there's going to be punishments for bad behavior. If you disobey, this will happen. And at the end, we want to close it, like kind of bring everything together with an appeal that they do the right thing by telling them, now you choose. So they have two paths set before them. They have the path of the good choice, and they have the path of the poor choice. And we want to just take them step by step, tell them what we want them to do, what we don't want them to do, the rewards of doing the right, and the rewards of the punishments, rather, of doing wrong, and inviting them to make a choice. And that's what Moses did, and that's what God did to Adam and Eve. That's what he does as the perfect parent, and we want to follow his example. So how can we do this? We can do this through appropriating the natural consequences when necessary. Well, natural consequences and applied consequences. So an example of this would be if you have a child, and this child you've given them an opportunity you want their room to be clean. I don't know how many of you all have your children's room looks like this. But I decided to cut the knot of difficulty, and I have very few things, and those little things that they have, they know where to find it. I mean, at least they know where to put it when they finally get around to putting it back. But it's, I think it's a good idea to keep less when you have little children so they can know what to do with things. But if your child fails to clean his or her room, you may give them a warning. You may say something like, I will help you find your things only if you do your part to stay organized. And there may come a time in a room like this, it's going to be hard to find something. Let's say one of these children has to get ready for school and they cannot find their homework assignment. So as the mother has stated, I'm not going to help you find things if you don't keep your room organized. So in this particular case, this child would not be able to find his or her homework assignment. And the result would be they receive a failing grade. So the failing grade would be the price they paid with their choice. They chose to leave their room a mess, and they chose to get a failing grade because they cannot find their things, because their mother would have been there to help them. But up front, she said, pretty much, I want your room to be clean. I don't want you to leave your room messy. If you keep your room clean, I will help you. If you don't keep your room clean, I will not help you, and choose. So this child made a choice, and they chose not to keep their room clean. And so I think it's important to think about if your child has a problem keeping his or her room clean, take some time. I've had some of my best experience as a parent when I take time to think. Sometimes we don't want to think about stuff. We just keep rolling day after day. But I suggest you take some time to think about, what kind of problems am I having in my home? What are some of the things that really give me a headache that I see going on with my children? What are some things that trouble my heart? What are the things that are going on that I think we need to make improvements on? So as we do that, I think it's important to just kind of consider, what is it that needs work, and come up with a plan, pray about it, and come up. What is the most common misbehaviors you're experiencing with your children, and what consequences would be appropriate for these misbehaviors, and coming up with it ahead of time, because a lot of times if we're not prepared, these things just continue to get out of hand until the problems get bigger and bigger, and we're just saying, oh no, don't do that, don't do that. And we're saying the same thing over and over again. And I'm talking from experience. So but at the same time, parents need TLC. We talked about giving our children lots of love and showing them lots of affection and giving them our time and our energy and our attention. But parents need these things too, because parenting is not for the weak at heart. I don't know about you all, but there have been some times along the way that I felt incapable and unable to fulfill the work of a parent. There was a time I was in Japan, and I felt like I had one little boy, my son, and there was a mother we were staying with, and she had 5 children, and she really seemed like she had everything together. And I'm thinking, well, maybe she can take my son and take better care of him than me. But that's not God's plan. God's plan is for me to roll my sleeves up and get the support I need through other mothers, through praying, just talking to this lady. I didn't have to leave my child with her. Maybe I could talk to her to get some pointers, but it's discouraging sometimes. And I don't know, it can be overwhelming, frustrating, disappointing. But I would like to encourage you all, as I prepare to bring this lesson to a close, Isaiah 49:25. If you have your Bibles, you can turn with me to Isaiah 49:25. This is a verse that has brought me great comfort as a parent. It says in Isaiah 49:25, but thus saith the Lord, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered. For I will contend with him that contendeth with thee, and I will save thy children. One of the biggest predictors of child abuse and neglect was the terrible combination of many stressors and isolation. You don't have to be alone. Number one, God is there for you. He says, I will save your children. That's a promise, you all. That's a promise that you can claim, even though it doesn't look like it. That's something my husband had to help me with. I felt like, oh, I'm at home with them all day. They should do this, they should do that. And he has to remind me it's by faith. If everything looked great, if they did everything great, it wouldn't be much faith required, but now, as we see what's going on day to day, we have eyes of faith that God is going to do what he said he's going to do. He says right there, I will save your children. So brothers and sisters, he's going to do it. But with this, as far as child abuse and neglect, don't isolate yourself. You know, as a mental health coach, I talk to people, and some of the troubles, a lot of trouble comes from when we isolate ourselves. You know, no man is an island. Get support. Reach out to other mothers. You know, there was a time, again, I felt very stressed, and I thought I needed a psychologist, so I just needed extra mental health help. And I reached out to a lady, and she was like, you can pay me if you want to, but I don't think you need my services. You just need to reach out to one of your friends with a lot of children like you, and talk to her and pray together. And for my case, thankfully, that's all it took. You know, I was able to save my money, and my friend was able to help me. And over the years, when I need some extra help, she's there to support me. And when she needs a little extra boost, I've been there to support her also. So find someone to support you. You know, see if you can reach out to somebody with a little more experience, a little more years under their belt that can help you and support you. And something that I found also, since I'm home with my children, this is something that I found helpful, is taking time each day to talk to another adult. Because they say that 15 minutes a day, researchers have found that 15 minutes a day of talking with another adult is effective in reducing the risk of child abuse or neglect. And I think that's important, to talk to others. You know, there were times that, and for single parents, for if you're a single parent, or even if you're in a 2-parent home, take time to talk to your spouse, or take time to talk to a trusted friend, because it can be kind of overwhelming. You know, I know COVID took a lot of people home, and a lot more children were home than were probably expected. But it's important for parents to take time to connect with other parents, or other adults rather, to just talk, you know, to just vent, to just decompress from a day of activity. So, and this brings us to the conclusion of our study. And so I do appreciate you all's attention. So I encourage you to have faith that God is going to do it, and take time to reach out to Him for support and prayer, and studying the Bible for issues that you may be having. What does the Bible say about this? And reaching out to other adults, just taking time to talk to, just have a support group, somebody that you can go to. Hey, can you just pray with me? Can I just talk to you? So get some support. Don't try to do this on your own. So thank you.
Amen. Thanks so much, Anika. Wow, that's very practical. Yes, let me just stop our streaming on Facebook, and then we can continue on with our discussion here.